ladies. I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial business owner, the founder of Shalo Glow LLC, an all-natural skincare company that helps you glow from head to toe. I am a champion for your daily self-care, business care, and intentional wellness.
Hey, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, published author, and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Together, we are Women Connected in Wisdom, a podcast grounded in the 8 dimensions of wellness.
And we like to get together every week for intentional conversations between us and special guests about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness.
You know, I said special guests, but we call them expert guests because all our guests are special and they're all experts.
And they are experts, decades of experience, degrees, personal experience, right? Leading teams. So not only do they have their own experiences and journeys, but those that they have helped through theirs as well, which is compound experience. That's how I count it, right? But yeah, we're not going to bring you anybody that we haven't, made sure their energy is a certain way, that they're going to treat people a certain way when you take advantage of their resource. And I just love being surrounded by so many dope women,
I love, I think we've talked about it on the show before, but I think our regular audience members know that often we do coffee and chats before we go live.
Yes.
And what we're doing is we're having introductory conversations with women that are interested in being on the show. And it just always gets me so excited, like to know what's coming, to know that, oh my goodness, like have you oh yeah.
Like I wish I could share your resource today, but today we already have a guest. So let's put you on this day, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Right? Very fun. So last week we took the week off.
Yes, we did. For your birthday. Happy birthday, Christine.
Thank you. I was working. I was doing an international leaders gathering for Interplay, and super fun, getting to play and tell stories. And Interplay is all about movement and storytelling and voice. So it was a week of leaders we had leaders from Africa. We had leaders from Australia. We had leaders from all over the United States, and coming together to bring best practices and to tell our stories and to reconnect and to be body to body after 3 years of being mostly online. It was really, really powerful.
And I've been so proud of how you've stepped into that position, and especially on an international level. I know the benefits of having you as a leader for community, of course, but to hear the feedback that you got, that it was the most enjoyed leadership gathering that
we better be careful. We don't know. Yes, somebody came up and said, I've been doing this a long time, and I really loved it. And part of what was really loved was the shared leadership, and the lifting up of a diverse leadership team. And really, we have people from all over the world. So
I love it. And really for me, what's been coming up is Glow Day. You're talking about having to wait 3 years to see the people that you've been enjoying working with, right? And for me, I've been building Shalo Glow, being intentional about helping people build their physical wellness. And so usually Glow Day, and the day that the business was founded, has been something that I've been celebrating for myself, right, as a business owner, and have done different stuff. And so in order to celebrate with the community, which has been the goal of Glow Day, was a huge thing, to be able to bring everybody together for 3 years and to just share stories about occupational wellness, and this person said that, and asking questions about how you balance your self-care. Even the moms being like, okay, you ladies with no kids are so cute with all the time that you have, but let me tell you how I balance it, right? So it was a beautiful thing.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you got to celebrate and have a fabulous time.
Yes,
and I was out of the state, or I would have been there.
Yes.
So I was there in spirit, and the pictures just looked amazing.
Thank you so much.
I love the toast that you put on social media and celebrating that moment.
Yeah.
So
And this was me. I was thinking about the podcast, right? Because I know
mhm.
last week we were off, and I wanted to put my takeaways that I consider for environmental wellness, right? And of course, I'm going to do
Mm,
intellectual wellness. And I'm looking at my feed and I'm like, I am not posting in between the things for the podcast. I have to put something up because I've been working so much, right? And so I think I want us to talk a little bit about that because I heard your voice when I said, Happy birthday, Christine. And I want to make sure that I'm giving you the celebratory energy because I love celebrating you and I appreciate your life. I appreciate what you've chosen to do with your life. You don't have to be an ally as a white woman. You could have did whatever you wanted to do, you know. And so I heard it, and it reminded me of how difficult it's been for me to celebrate this year too. You know, my 30th birthday, and I'm at dinner with you guys getting stolen from, like, you
yeah,
know, and I was so happy to have you guys there. And I didn't want to make it about that, but part of me was like, I want to just say it so they know and thank them for helping me celebrate because that was a huge bright spot for that
right,
day. And that's what we do. You know, we deal with life. And like you said,
right,
instead of holding the grief and the gratitude, we acknowledge it and honor it and process through everything. So happy
right.
birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm grateful. You
Yeah.
know, it's been an interesting year for me for holidays and birthdays. You know, there's been so much caregiving going on
Yeah.
in my family and community that they've been different than they usually are, right?
Yes,
And it doesn't mean they're bad or better or like it's just different.
it
Just
is.
noticing,
Yes.
noticing the difference this year and lifting up and looking for the good. One of my practices when I get home from a big event or big travel is to reground, like walk around and look at my flowers and look at the things that are blooming. And
Yeah.
I walked out this morning, and I think we talked about this a couple of episodes ago when we were talking about environmental wellness, about
Cool.
planting plants that are native to your area. So, it calls in the pollinators and calls. And I
Mm.
have this gorgeous bee balm that is really tall. Like it's almost taller than I am right now.
Wow.
And at the top, it has this really beautiful purple flower. It's just this little, and I walk out this morning and there is this bee like tucked in.
Yeah.
Like all you see is a little butt. And he's like just all in
Yeah.
the flower. And I was like, whoa, like he is really just, I don't know why it makes me giggle, but when I think about bee balm and I think about him diving into that beautiful flower, I was thinking about that and getting regrounded and re-centered and reset. Because, after big events, when there's so much outpouring or, often I
Yes.
have to reset and reground and get myself back and going. So
Yes.
what are we talking about today?
So today we're talking about democracy and igniting a bold new democracy and empowering citizens through game-changing reforms. Now, just to be completely transparent, right? This is with our guests, and we will see what side of the conversation we will be able to have today. I don't want to go into her expertise because I am not as much of an expert in it as she is, right? But the way I think about it for us in intellectual wellness, especially as women in business, is I look forward and love to participate in democracy by creating jobs, right?
Mhm.
Intentionally putting my cash flow at the places that benefit me by where I live, or even like Alexandria, Egypt, being able to extend an opportunity so that we can spread dimensional wellness across the world. I believe
Mhm.
that puts individuals each in a better position to be able to wholly participate in the democracy that we want to see here. That's how I think about it. What about you?
Right. Well, I'm just thinking about, do we want to give our listeners the definition? And we can give it
Yes.
again in another second, but I always like to ground in our definitions.
Me too. Absolutely. So this week, guys, again, intellectual wellness. And based on our Women Connected in Wisdom glossary, intellectual wellness includes having access to different sources of information and developing critical thinking and timely decision-making skills. Also, continual learning through intentional intellectual growth, situations, and artistic creativity can help maintain one's intellectual capacity.
Right. That's what I was thinking about. I wanted to go back to that part about intentional intellectual growth, situations, and artistic creativity. Because I think about the gathering last week, and I think about 50 bodies and Body Wisdom, because that's Interplay's official nonprofit is Body Wisdom. And that when we think intellectual wellness, we often think the brain, right? And we have a lot of authors on this show, and we have a lot of folks that I for years thought when you think intellect, you think just this part of our bodies, right? And then the being able to encompass our whole selves, our whole beings. And how does that change how we are in community, how we are with each other, how we are, I don't know. I'm excited to have this conversation. And I'm really, I'm thinking about the things I learned last week in community and how we take care of each other and how we learn from each other. And, we had 2 Interplay leaders that had come from Australia. One of which, Janet, has my mother's name. Hello, Janet, if you're listening.
Hi, Janet.
And Eileen, and just that they have been doing Interplay in literally almost a world away, right?
Yes.
But in our system, we have a shared language. And I think it was Janet that expressed this. No matter where I go in the world, I can walk in and feel like I belong because of this shared language of Interplay, like the way we do a warm up or the way we, some of our framework and I think about that when I think about so many things. When I think about somebody coming from another country to our country, and if they don't share the language, how challenging that can be, right?
Yes.
I think about that. When I think about women's life cycles and the fact that, if you didn't know how to parent and all of a sudden you're a parent, that's a shared language there, and having the support system to ask the questions. And that's what we're all about and what we do, right? We're connected in wisdom. So if I don't know, you're going to know, or you might know somebody that knows.
Right.
And I always think about that when I think about intellectual wellness. I think about, how are we doing this? What are we doing, right?
And what I think about, to get even more specific, is exactly what you said, right? Like, I'm doing something for the first time, and that takes a lot to learn it, right? To be open to learn it, and then to apply it, and then to try to apply it well, and then do it again and add it into a habit is a whole thing and a process that takes energy of itself, right? You were talking about the coffee and chats earlier, and what I love that our coffee and chat today, our guest, April, she'll be on in a few weeks for you ladies. She shared that when she talks about financial wellness and financial freedom, she considers time, money, and I like that she said, and energy. Right. Because we had the glow day, and some people are like, I come from up north. We might not necessarily, we have tough love, right? Nobody cares about what you're going through. Like, I get it, but everybody has stuff. Everybody has life going on. You have to hold your own weight, right? And then we have other people that are like, well, I'm the soft spot for my children in the world, right? And of course, I'm like, make sure that you take care of yourself so you can be that soft spot for yourself. But I think that we have that conversation about it, and people feel different ways about it, but the capacity still has to be taken into consideration. And that's the energy part that I really like that she brought up, right? Because if we're not taking into consideration the energy, we might wonder, well, intellectually, I know this, right? Well, why didn't I do it this week? Well, this week was different because of everything that happened. Maybe the news that you got, or like you said, the big project that you're coming off of, and you need to reset. And so that helps me honor where I am and honor where everybody else is, right? And remember that just because Christine is amazing doesn't mean that she's not doing her best. If she's not a robot and she didn't show up exactly how she showed up last time, we have to
giving each other grace, right?
Yeah.
Around, I think as women, especially, like, we are hardest on ourselves a lot of times, right? We know Dr. Cynthia Phelps, who does the mindful self-compassion and Inner Ally. Have you been checking out her work lately? She has a Tuesday night compassion group that is free. That we could put in our show notes, because it is looking fantastic. They're doing really cool topics, but really what it all comes back to is that practice of our inner voice and our self-compassion and giving ourselves grace, especially when we're going through tough times. Because I don't know about y'all, but everybody I know has like 3 to 5 major, not minor, like major things that they're holding up right now.
Yes.
And so it's not just like one off here, or one person here. It's like almost everybody I'm talking to. Literally. And so this has been a challenging time for a lot of people. And so how do we take the skills we've learned? How do we take the modalities we have to bring it together for self and community care? So if you are listening out there right now, give us a shout out if you've got a question, if you've got a comment. We're waiting on our guest who's having a little bit of tech issues today, and we're hoping they're able to get on. But in the meantime, we're talking about intellectual wellness. And I want to give a big shout out. We have been trending lately in Indonesia and India. So if you are listening from Indonesia and India,
hi guys.
Welcome. Hello. Hello and welcome, and we are glad that you are listening. And let us know if you have questions or comments, and we'd be happy to answer them. So
I love that. I want to know, like in India, in Indonesia, how does Women Connected in Wisdom help your intellectual wellness? That's what I want to know. Like when you're downloading it, right? Because we see all these downloads, and I always think like, each person that downloaded it, I wonder when they were like, yep, I need to save this one, and what they did with the information.
Right? Yeah. It's always so fun. It's it's fun when we get the comments on the different platforms and we know who's listening, right? Super fun.
Yes.
And always want to give shout outs and gratitudes. All right. So let's talk intellectual wellness. What are you reading?
Yes. So, and I was sharing sharing this with you, right? I Love Me More. Jenna sent this by Jenna Banks, right? Jenna sent this to us after she was on the show. And I think that I do a pretty good job with it. I love the reminders. And of course, I'm still going to finish it, right? But what struck me the most is when she moved back in with her. This is where I'm at in the book, right? She moves back in with her boyfriend that she had already broken up with. She shared about him on the show, and she starts the love tank that she talks about, right? Where your power comes from, starts emptying, and she starts feeling the same. And it made me feel better for when I had a similar situation. You know, I was like, why was I so nice? I overextended so much. And again, instead of judging, we're working on noticing and asking the questions and see how it feels in our body to get, insight. And, I just appreciate her vulnerability, and Jenna's beautiful. People will look at her and say, you could have anybody. And even, people on this list, we still end up in these situations. So just the reminder to say, hey, what do you need in this moment? And how can you get there? And it's okay if you ebb and flow with different stuff. It's okay if you don't have all the information, and intellectually you have to ask somebody else for help or support as you choose to make a new decision.
When you said that, I don't know why it tickled me, but I think about Google, right?
Yeah. Hello.
I think about now that we have so many resources at our fingertips.
Yes.
And just if we don't know, we either know somebody or we can figure out a way to find it.
Yes.
Brandy Lee, so glad
Brandy.
you're listening today. Brandy Lee says, this topic is on time. I'm starting Emergent Strategies by Adrienne Marie Brown. Woo, love that book. Yes, yes, yes. And I feel like this topic will come up in this book also.
What Emergent Strategies? I would like to hear more. What is that? Do you know what that is, Christine?
Yeah, it's about, Adrienne Marie Brown is a community, she's a community builder and a community activist. And my understanding of her work is how do we do this together? Like, how do these strategies emerge and come out of each of us and our communities?
Yes.
And because, a lot of times we're handed especially in America, we're handed this white patriarchal society that was like, this is the way to do it. This is the only way to do it, know, and if you do it a different way, it's wrong. Right. And a lot of those systems were put in place to keep different classes in certain areas, different races in certain areas. And so this is about, how do we do this as a community? Like, where she also talks, I can't remember if it's in this book or another book, talks about mutual aid, talks about how do we build it, that, we can't wait on other people. No. Like, this is, this time we are building something new, and we're changing the systems, and it's not always easy.
No, it's not.
So,
and that, again, that's what I've been thinking about for my chapter, I'm talking about jumping cash flow quadrants, right? So as we go into working in the business, having more time together, more projects, and a larger scope on the way that we want to spread dimensional wellness, right? That's come up with different projects and different conversations that we've had to have. And I've been telling my counsel and my support system, I'm grateful to have all the conversations, right? Like, oh, we knocked this out of the park, and oh, I need to do better for this for Christine. Or, hey, I think, Christine, let's talk about this. And I'm super thankful for my background in psychology, because when we talked about development and teamwork and groups forming and family systems, right? We know that there's, norming, it's storming. I might get it out of order. Forming, storming, and norming, right? But basically what it's talking about is, when you bring stuff together, there's going to be some, I usually do this, I usually do that. There's going to be some storming. There might be some fights, right? Which looks different on different teams. I'll take our conversations that are difficult, which I think are really easy compared to how they could go, to some of these petty chairs thrown, other storms that happen, right? And then the norming, like, what does it mean to now be on the Women Connected in Wisdom team, to be on the Connected in Wisdom Press team, and talk to Jailon at 2 a.m. in the morning, because she's in Egypt, and we can get stuff done together that way. So it's been a beautiful thing to do it on this level, and it'll continue to be that, as I start in real estate investing and investing in different places. There's always going to be that the learning curve, the difficulty to learn, the difficulty to apply it. But when I take it and I pace it out for myself, because I'm mindful of the energy and the financial capacity, right, or the time capacity to apply it, it's made it easier to sustain, easier to maintain, to set up, and to look at and be clear throughout the process.
Right. When I hear you about that, like the taking the time. I think about incremental steps that we've talked about often on the show. I also think about knowing ourselves, right?
So
like, one of the things Joe and I talk about is it takes him about 3 days to absorb information.
Okay.
And sometimes he gets frustrated with himself because he's like, oh, I'm not getting it. But he is also the type of learner that when he gets it, like, it's in his brain forever.
Yeah.
Which I am quicker at absorbing stuff, but I also am quicker at it being right out the other door, right? It's like I can pick it up, but I also set it down just as fast. And I think that's a part when we think about, well, unless it's in my body. Let me say that, because I'm a kinesthetic learner.
Okay.
And so when that's kind of the person that has to do to learn.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And when I do to learn, or when I drive somewhere, right.
Yes.
I'm going to be able to do it again, because that's how I work. But just, I don't know where I'm totally going on a left train.
No, I'm with you.
I'm just thinking about this as it applies to intellectual wellness, like the knowing of ourselves, the having grace and being gentle with ourselves. Right.
Yes. Yes.
I used to give myself really a hard time. Like, if somebody would say something and then I'd let it go, but I'm not an audio learner.
Right.
Which is funny because I got a podcast.
Yeah. You're the disseminator, not the learner here. Yeah. And we can do different things and we get embodied, and I hear what you're saying, but I think that's a perfect point. And that's why what you were saying for me is so relevant to the topic, because it's, okay, this is how I am. This is how I learn, but this is what I do. And sometimes it's different, right? As solopreneurs, okay, there's all these different parts of the business. You might not be an expert at all of them. I had to realize at the beginning of this year, if you guys follow me on social media, I said, you know what, guys, I'm going to do it. I'm going to post on social media, even if I'm nervous. And then I was noticing and not judging. Right. And it's like, well, why aren't you posting on social media? In addition to everything we could talk about social media and the effect that it has, I had to realize, oh, well, as an entrepreneur, one, that's a huge mind shift, right? To go from an honor student, section leader, all these things that I could brag about. But as a woman, it wasn't something that I bragged about all the time. I just did it, right? But now if I'm Amazon bestseller in a retail space on Auburn Avenue and all these things, if I don't tell anybody, nobody knows about it. And now it's my job to tell as many people as I can to get the certain headcount that I want in certain places, right? Had to pivot it. And so it's the same thing as far as understanding how different partners work. That could cause an argument. If you're expecting him to remember in 15 minutes and he finally remembers in 3 days and he comes up and you're like, what are you talking about? Well, here we go. Right. But I love it because for like the classes and everything we look forward to doing on the community, what it tells me is, okay, so maybe have it span a week, right? The information, and then check in at the beginning with people, move a little bit how we move, and then maybe do something to anchor in the information for those of us who do forget it faster. Maybe we apply it really fast and we forget it. Now it's just how do we build the system to complement both?
Right. And also have that search engine where you can look it up.
Hello. Yes.
I don't think we have to hold everything in our brains.
We don't.
I think there's too much to hold in our brains anymore.
Yes, especially now. Oh my goodness. I looked at my password list because we keep a note. And before you might have had 4 different places, maybe 6 on the high side. No, it's a whole scroll and you're scrolling. And that's the personal passwords. That's not including the 3 businesses and everything else. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to circle back around to Emergent Strategies by Adrienne Marie Brown. I wanted to lift that up a little more. We'll put that in the show notes, but I wanted to give a description of the book because I have read it. And, this is the part of, am I referencing the right book or not? Right.
Yeah, no problem.
So the description is inspired by Octavia Butler's explorations of our human relationship to change. Emergent Strategy is a radical self-help, society help, and planet help designed to shape the futures we want to live. Change is constant. The world is in a continual state of flux. It is a stream of ever mutating emergent patterns. Rather than steel ourselves against such change, this book invites us to feel, map, assess, and learn from the swirling patterns around us in order to better understand and influence them as they happen.
Yes.
This is a resolutely materialist, spiritually based, equally on science and science fiction, a visionary incantation to transform that which ultimately transforms us.
Yes. I love it. Sounds like it's beautifully written. It sounds like it's colorful the way that it's written, but it makes sense in order to help people with the transition and the change. And I think that's huge right now. Like the other day, I was on the phone with somebody who came to Glow Day, and she asked me, how do you stay calm in the midst of chaos? Like, how do you do that? And that's how it feels when things are consistently changing and you just almost wrapped your mind around something and here it goes changing again, but when I know that everything is going to work in my favor, even the things that are frustrating, I know that it's frustrating for right now, but this moment is temporary. That just is. And we talk about this in volume 2, right? Using the emotions as messenger and Eileen Dillon's work, changing that energy into something else. So if I'm frustrated, but I know it's going to work in my favor, then instead I can step back and look for the lesson or look for a way to be understanding, or maybe I missed something, or maybe after I go through those things, okay, now here it's time to say something so that this person is, we're all on the same page for whatever it is. And that absolutely helps me through the transitions of all the different changes. But yes, change and uncertainty is a big thing right now. And that's why I love what we do, giving the resources and access to these different ladies who have done the work and are excited to help and passionate about the work that they do in the world and lining them up with whoever needs what they have for them.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to invite us to just take a deep breath. I don't know about y'all, but I need one right now. I also think when I think about intellectual wellness, some days I think it's my recalcitrant teenager, right, is just like, no more.
That's a thing.
But then when I look at our definition and I think about how it includes the artistic creativity, right? Yes. To help us maintain our intellectual capacity. That it doesn't always have to be heavy. It can be inner playful. It can be that we're expanding our capacity by being outside taking pictures of the flowers. Yes. And that, we may want to learn all about the camera, and that's a different piece. But, in this moment, we're doing the artistry of it, right? Yeah. And how that all weaves together. Absolutely. How it weaves together in our life.
Yeah. And
Hey, y'all, this is a great place to take a break and hear from our awesome sponsors that make Women Connected in Wisdom podcast possible. Shannon, we are so grateful that Shayla Glow is the sponsor of the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. And I wanted to take this moment to ask you, when you think about the people who use Shayla Glow, who are we talking about?
That's a good question. I think about 3 groups, really. One, the group that's removing hair, right? So whether you're using laser hair removal, waxing, shaving, you got to make sure that you're putting back what you're taking out. The second group, I think about those with dry skin and the problems that might cause, right? The scars, itching, burning, whatever the situation is, you definitely need all 3 steps, right? The exfoliation, making sure you're taking the dead skin cells off. The oil, putting in the moisture, and then the shea butter with the aloe, sealing it, helping you heal. Those things help both groups, right? And third, for the third group is those with chronic illness. The story is personally from cancer and different diseases that our population is dealing with on a daily basis throughout families as individuals. So I'm thinking about my mom and my grandmother and those around me with the same generational ties, right? And what positive, healthy habits we can start to make sure that we're maintaining our wellness, especially because the skin is like the cape, the exterior, the shield for your immune system. So with COVID, we have to be intentional about covering ourselves. And those are the groups I think about.
I love it. And you know what else I love about your product? It's all natural, handmade, and it smells great, y'all. So yay.
Tested. Yes, esthetician tested and approved. Yes. What about you? When you think about your company, what groups of people do you think about?
Well, I work with individual coaching clients. I work in community classes and with corporate teams. And with all of them, I use a strength-based, embodied approach to help folks connect with themselves and access joy, reduce burnout, and build resilience. Especially during these times, I think we need it. I think we need all the hashtag partnership power we can get.
Yes. I really saw the effect of that as a kitchen manager, because when you, especially at a nice restaurant, it's like, I think of it as like working on a cruise ship or working at a vacation destination. Like everybody else is relaxing, you're working, you know what I mean? And so sometimes that can wound you up, right? And when I was having the one-on-one with my general manager, Alicia, she taught me a lot about the way to think about things in management, right? And she said, my managers are more full of life at work when their life is fuller. And when you're living, I said, I wasn't mad at that person because they were late. I had a right to write them up, and that is my job, and we will have that conversation. But I was so upset because I was early and I didn't take my time this week to spend my time where I wanted to. So I made extra time for work, and I feel like this person should have made, and so you can start unpacking stuff. And so absolutely, when I write out my planner and my time, I make sure to include the facials before I'm on camera, not only because I want my skin to look good and to make sure that it's even throughout the week, but because I know that when I'm on camera, I'm also pouring out. And so I want to pour in before I pour out so that I'm giving from the excess and not the cup that I need. Yeah.
Well, and thinking about that, like, it's summertime.
Yes.
It's officially summer now.
Yes, it is.
And so what are you doing for self-care?
Ooh. Ooh, so for self-care, let's do the facials. I'm staying on my facial regimen. I had gotten off of it because my chemical exfoliant was running low. You know that Shalo Glow is esthetician tested and approved. And so my face is actually where I use two other products. The product from my esthetician. So Sedona Ray, I use her pumpkin spice chemical exfoliant. And then Mariella was on our show. Mariella Percal, excuse me, has Percal Naturals, and that's the mask that I use. So staying on
Mm.
that for myself, for my skin. Hydration, of course, and staying on the workout schedule, and also using Profit First. And the way I've been intentional about my financial wellness has made it so that I'll be able to go on trips in addition to still having the living expenses that I need to stay in the business, which is huge that I can do both, right? So breaks and trips and starting to travel for business. I know that's on the work side. But I'm super excited about the conversations that we're going to have as, as a group of women going on that trip. So I count it part work, part self-care, and it'll be a little break from Georgia. Yeah.
And what trip are you talking about, my friend?
Oh, so July 22nd, we are going to South Carolina. So if you guys have been following and making sure that you're at all of our book signings, you know that this one was moved. So I'm super excited for the opportunity to go. We're going to be at All Good Books. It's a brand new bookstore that just opened in March. And so we were going to go and help them celebrate their grand opening. Now we get to go and have a little summer shindig and hopefully be at a couple of different places. So stay tuned and we'll let you know on social media where and when you can find us there.
Right? I love it.
Yeah,
love that we're, connected and going to different states to support different authors, and just so much fun.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing for me with intellectual wellness and women too, is I guess I say that a lot, the biggest thing, but is things can shift, right? So you thought it was supposed to be here. They told you in your lifetime as a woman, this was supposed to happen here and it happened here. But the reality is that things fall in place where they're supposed to, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm excited for the transition and the opportunity to move it. But we were talking about water and spending time outside as a group. And I think it's going to be a lot easier to do that in June than it would have been to do that in March. So yeah, it fell in place.
Right. I'd love to hear what our listeners, they're doing for self-care this summer, and ways that they're staying connected. Right. Yes. Because I think it's easy nowadays I'm thinking about all my folks in Texas right now that are going through this huge heat wave, like unsafe to be outside in some places right now.
It's hot this week.
And we're not even talking about the air quality, because I got an alert on my phone and all that, like the upper part of the United States and the air quality from the wildfires coming down from Canada, that it's really affecting a lot of people getting to be outside, right? Because I think about, it's outdoor time, right? So we may need to be intentional around that. We may need to be smart when we think about intellectual wellness, like, right?
Hello.
If we're a red warning outside, like,
don't go do 100 jumping jacks outside,
right? If you're this is very interesting. So this is where my brain, this is what is emerging right now in my brain. Yep. I'm thinking about the red warnings from the Weather Channel app. I'm thinking about the red flags on the beaches in Florida, where a lot of people have been drowning recently because they're not paying attention to the red flags. And I think about our self-care and our red flags, right?
Yes.
And our red flags and our body wisdom. And when, in Interplay, we often talk about inner authority. We talk about the fact, and this goes really well with intellectual wellness, right?
Yes.
We are the experts of our bodies.
Right.
We are the expert of our life experience.
Yes.
Like, do we have things to learn? Sure. It comes from
everybody
outside. We all have things to learn. I want to be a lifelong learner,
Me too. Yes.
But I have a lot of knowing and wisdom and things that come through where this body has been and what this body has done and the places it's seen and smelled and heard. And when I think about that, if I'm not taking time to notice, if I'm not taking time to pause and take a deep breath and notice, I may miss those red flags. I may miss those red flags that lead me to a crash, right? Whether it's immune system or health or just emotional or, all the different signs of wellness, right?
Yes.
So this is really coming up for me right now because of what we talked about earlier about so many people holding so much right now, that I just want to encourage myself and you and our listeners to really take time to pause and check in with yourself and see if there's any red flags going up about your 8 dimensions of wellness that you might need to check in with.
Yes.
And really pay attention to this summer.
Yeah. And I just want to give a second for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also say that my goal, and I think our goal is that continuously, for you, when we talk about maintaining the wellness, we can't maintain it if we don't know where it is, right? So continuously looking, and not like an octopus with 8 heads looking at all 8 dimensions all the time. That's not the energy that we're expecting it to come from, or that's not healthy, right? But just checking in with yourself throughout the day. When I think about Stillpoint, I think about it in a couple of different ways, and little dots throughout the timeline is also how I think about it. Check in with yourself for a second. I was talking to somebody this week, somebody I'm accountability partner for, and we were talking about lower back stretches, things like that, and balance. And I said, sometimes even as I work on my balance, if throughout the day I see I'm dropping my phone 2-3 times or running into stuff, that's when you just stop and wait a minute, so if like I said earlier, if I feel like I'm going to get upset or I'm frustrated more often, instead of judging, I notice, and that might be the yellow flag, let's try to catch it before it's red. Can we do yellow flags? Let's, for ourselves and for those in community with us. So when we bring it, it's not a, hey, I really need help. Hey, you've been doing, well, that's not necessarily always fair for that person. How about we take a step back and consider the capacity even before then. I don't want us to get to 0 anymore. I don't want us passing out in the middle of the street. I want us to say, hey, I need to go lay down. Let's push this 15 minutes out and go lay down real quick and come back and see where we are.
Right?
Yeah.
Such good things to notice, right?
Yeah, but I love that throughout the summer. That's a good point.
A good reminder. Yeah. Well, I think about, I think I've said this on another episode. I can't remember which one. Okay. But I think about that I always fooled myself into thinking I'd have more time during the summer. Because,
it might have been last week.
The the fact that when I had kids in school and, the structure was different during the summer and quote unquote more relaxed, but there was always more work to do. Because there was more meals to cook or to facilitate, and there was more cleanup to do, and there was more fun to be had. And it was just a different way of being in the midst of all this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been that, right? Like you're hearing school is out, and that's the majority of the conversation and why times have changed in the summer, right? But that is not, like you said, your reality. Like they don't have school, but I have more to do. And so sometimes, again, in situations when I notice how I feel, that is what shows me the difference between the way I've been thinking about it and what it actually is, and the balance that it actually is falling into when we're doing the things that we're doing every day, or supporting the people that we're supporting, or trying to add ourselves in. Well, why didn't I have time for that? Oh yeah, I did all these things. And then that'll show me.
Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I know we have woven all around today.
That's I was
laughing. Well, it's also like Brandy mentioning emergent strategy. It's what emerged. Our guest had tech issues and wasn't able to come on today. So the show emerged as it, life is always changing and going with the flow. And being unexpected. And, we expected to talk about democracy today, which, you and I could have gone off on a whole tangent about that, about, go vote and go do the things you need to do. But, and I hope that all is well with our guest, and that she is able to join us at a different time, because I was really looking forward to that conversation.
Me too.
Because it was about like collaboration and different ways of being with each other, and how to navigate it. Hey, Life Coach Co, nice to see you.
Tell us, what are you doing this summer, Coach Co, for your intellectual wellness?
And self-care.
Excuse me. Yes, it was self-care, not specifically intellectual wellness.
Right, as we're getting ready to wrap. And so while she's talking about that, I want to pull up, Shannon, our Wisdom in Action.
Yes.
Talking about intellectual wellness, talking about summer self-care.
So I think that I'm going to say, for my Wisdom in Action, intellectual wellness is... Ooh, what about this? Make the numbers count. I think that's mine in my action, because something else that I'm doing for self-care, and I do laugh sometimes because I want to make sure I'm not putting work on there, right? But we talked about me jumping cash flow quadrants and the intellectual wellness chapter that I'm writing. And this quarter, the goal is to look at the numbers, see what makes sense, whether it's for bringing on teammates. We've been talking about that, the teams and the systems, or if it's my personal numbers and seeing how my hours need to be to make it sustainable as we write volume 2 and finish up the audiobook for volume 1. I am looking at the numbers to make sure that I take care of myself and take care of the businesses. So # make the numbers count.
Yes. I love it. Like Coach says, studying dyslexia, sleeping, working out, eating better, scheduling social activities.
Yes.
Awesome.
Love it.
Awesome. Yeah, this week, my Wisdom in Action, it's kind of funny, but it goes with what we're talking about body wisdom, right? Okay. I am listening to and reading Rest is Resistance, Manifesto by Tricia Hersey. And I know Tricia Hersey's the lead author, but and it looks like it says Ann Brown Spark Little. Okay. Because it always, So Carolyn Renee, one of our Women Connecting Wisdom, and I are doing a retreat up in Hiawassee, Georgia, the weekend after 4th of July. And
that's what I was going to ask.
We are, and we only have 1 or 2 spots. So if you're listening and you want to join us, you're welcome to. But I'll put a link in our show notes. Mm-hmm. But we are, we pivoted because we had like a lot of stuff we were doing. And then we were like, what is needed at this time? And both of us are reading and listening to this book. So I'm going to finish that because we are really leaning into the body wisdom of what is needed in this time. Yes. So Life Coach Co. also says, I am offering tutoring on reading. So I'm studying in a professional development.
Love it.
I love
the resources. And I love that you ladies are focused on rest too. That's what's been coming up for me in the middle of the year. It's okay. We're halfway through 2023. How is everybody doing? Where are we on our goals? And what do we need? And a lot of people, it's just rest and reset. Yes. Life Coach Co., thanks for listening today. And will you also give us the link if somebody wants to reach you for their kiddo about tutoring, reading? If you have openings, give us the link and we'll put it in our show notes, because great teachers, great resources, especially if you're doing it virtually, we want to share with our listeners. We'd love that. Absolutely. And thank you, Coach Co. I love how flexible you guys are. It's amazing the level of professionalism. Here we go. Yes. Yes. And it's genuine. We genuinely understand stuff happens, tech happens. It's happened to me. It's happened to Christine. And so to support each other through that it's an honor to be able to do, especially with as many people as we are able to, and across the world.
Right. And never disappointing to just have a conversation with you, my friend and co-host. We will absolutely do that. We need to give our listeners the heads up that it will be a rerun show next week. We are taking next week off for some self-care. And we will be back the week after.
Yes. And this is for occupational wellness. So today we talked about intellectual wellness, right? Next week for occupational wellness, we are, like she said, genuinely practicing that and taking a little space, right? We do have some exciting stuff coming up for you guys. We have the audiobook that's about to be released soon. So if you know that you want an audio version of the book, stay tuned to our social media, subscribe to the channel, get the alerts and different things so you know when we're reaching out. Get on the email list wherever you're not, right? To make sure that you're getting all the latest information from Women Connected in Wisdom. If you are part of the community and the Connected in Business, next month we're going to be talking about speaker one pages. We have our Amazon bestsellers coming up, Amazon bestseller campaign coming up for the authors. So if you're in the community, make sure that you stay tuned to that. And we're going to work on getting it connected different ways for you guys so you always have the latest calendar updates and everything to your phone. And I think we have something else, Christine. So we've been saying this for a while, that the doors are closing for the volume, right? They are officially closing. And I know Coach Co had somebody, I got a call yesterday. We have some authors that are still interested. So if you would like to join us for volume 2, as a listener, I want to extend the opportunity, right? We're talking about the 8 dimensions of wellness. If your question is, do I fit? Yes, everything falls in the 8 dimensions of wellness, right? We can work on the next steps and how to get you included, but we do have space in every dimension. I would say outside of emotional and mental, that's going to be, very, very stacked with the experts that have already said yes. So email us at womenconnectedinwisdompodcast@gmail.com or cwpress@womenconnectedinwisdom.com if you're interested to be part of the book or have questions about being part of the show. And I think that's everything we have coming up. Did I miss anything, Christine?
It's a lot, my friend.
Other offerings? I know it's a lot.
Right?
I know it's a lot. But okay, guys, that's what we have for you this week for Intellectual Wellness, episode 120. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you not next week, but in 2 weeks, live at 5. In the meantime, don't forget,
be well,
be wise, and be whole. We'll talk to you soon.
Peace.
Thanks for listening. This has been the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. On air live on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern via Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be part of the conversation and get connected at womenconnectedinwisdom.com.